back to Malaysians on the Move. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Trisha, all the way from Northern Ireland. I'm really excited to dive into the motivations and challenges that have shaped her journey to where she is today. So, a warm welcome to you, Trisha.
Hi, Yoshnee. Thanks for having me.
How is it going, Trisha? I guess I should say that we went to the same high school. Why don't you share a little bit about your story in growing up in PJ or Slango?
It's been years, hasn't it? Yeah, we've known each other since high school. And honestly, I think, as you grow older and once you leave high school, there's this whole other life that you start with college, university, and so on. And sometimes you don't really have that, people lose contact. But with technology and social media, I think that's the best thing that's ever been around. But yeah, so a little about me. I was born and raised, I was actually born in KL, but I lived part of my life in PJ. And that's why I went to primary school in PJ. And we went to, the same high school in PJ as well. I actually then moved to KL. So I lived, in Bangsa. My childhood was great. I had, I'd say, one of the best childhood any child can have. I have wonderful parents, modern parents for Asian parents, I'd say. I was able to get away with a lot of things, and I think I am where I am today. In most ways, it's definitely a testament to my folks. They weren't very traditional with me. They were one of those parents where they would have a conversation with me as opposed to saying no to everything or you can't do something, as I know a lot of my friends' parents typically do. And that's where, they act out, children act out afterwards, and so on. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me, from KL.
And you don't have any siblings, right?
No, I'm an only child, so as you can imagine, I actually loved it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat and hide this, but I enjoyed being an only child. I never really felt alone, if I'm being honest. I think my parents really tried to take me out, do things. I had cousins, enough cousins to spend that time with. So I had a really good childhood, in that respect.
Yes, yes. And if you have cousins and if they're in close proximity to where you live, they're essentially siblings. At least that's how it is for us growing up in, Asian society.
Exactly.
And so after high school or secondary school, as we call it, what did you go on to do?
I went to college. I actually did my law degree. I am currently not practicing, but I did law and I got into corporate immigration. So I studied in Malaysia for a few years. And then I did what it's called a UK transfer program, and I transferred to the University of Hertfordshire.
Got it. So your undergraduate law degree was kind of split where some
Yes.
years were in Malaysia and then, okay, how did you like it in the UK at the time?
Oh, I enjoyed it. It was a blast. I think coming out of high school, there's all this anticipation and excitement. My experience moving to the UK was great as a student. I had a wonderful time. It's the excitement, leaving home. Not in a bad way that you're not going to miss your family, but it's that other life that you are experiencing. It's that next step you're taking. I was through the moon when I got to university and to Hertfordshire. I made a lot of friends, and I think my circle grew bigger. I made a lot of local friends, from England, and I also made a lot of European friends, and some of which I still keep in touch. And wherever I travel, if I'm able to see them, I do that. So it's been great completing my degree, and also choosing the law degree was probably one of the best decisions I have ever made for me.
Yeah, that is awesome when you find something that you love and continue on and if it enriches you and if it's a career for you, like that's the best because a lot of people do a university degree and then after they still don't feel that connect with what they graduated in and they're like, I don't know what job I want to do. But for you, I think you really enjoyed it, you were very passionate about it, and so after you graduated, did you come back to Malaysia or did you stay in the UK?
Yeah, so I did come back to Malaysia. I think my mindset was in a bit of a different space. I really wanted to know what I wanted to really do. And my folks had a very simple explanation. They said, you are young. You may not know what
Great
you want to do.
advice.
exactly. Give it a go. And I did, for a while. And then I said, this isn't my cup of tea. And I even did some internships while I was doing it to get a flavor of it. Now, there was a lot of excitement when you did your internship because you saw how lawyers went to court, and that might have been me. And don't get me wrong, I would go and do the bar if I wanted to go to practice right now. But it was just something that never really tickled my fancy. And I just decided I'll take a while off. I did a legal admin job with, as you know, the Air Asia group. So I was with Tune Hotels for a while. So they have a group of hotels, and I was working there as their admin in their legal department until an opportunity came along for me to get into immigration. So into the corporate immigration side. So it's still law, it's still legal. So I haven't lost that aspect. Yeah, and I got my foot in the door into corporate immigration in 2015 in Malaysia, and I've been doing corporate immigration ever since until date.
Got it. And I guess, for my understanding, when you say corporate immigration, it means that you're attached to a corporation and your role is to help immigrants get a job at the corporation in the location where they're not.
So I'll give you a scenario. Essentially, we've got my company, that's the corporate immigration firm. Our clients are not individuals like yourself. Our clients are big MNC companies that need to either relocate individuals, send people
Yeah,
abroad. Yeah, and that's literally, and essentially we do is advise these companies and their employees that they wish to relocate, the legalities, the paperwork, etc.
that's awesome. So, what countries do you cover, or did you have to learn up about the legal situations in many countries, Asia Pacific, or how did it start?
So I started in Malaysia, and I predominantly did Malaysian immigration for about a year. So that's how I got my foot in the door. And then in 2016, I applied. I think I went through a rough patch at some point. I did love what I was doing, but I wanted more. I had this urge and this itch to move. I thought that I wanted to explore. I'm an explorer as well. I love going to different countries, etc. So I said, instead of aiming far like to the US or to the UK first, let's take baby steps. I saw an opportunity in Singapore in 2016. I applied for it, went through the interview stage and everything. I met the boss, and I got the job, and I moved. So in 2016, I relocated to Singapore, and I was doing immigration with the firm there. And that's where I started a broader aspect of corporate immigration that was Asia Pacific. So I covered the whole APAC when it came to corporate immigration. What that essentially entails is, did I have to learn the ropes of every single country? Yes and no. It's a mix. So it's not like I had training in each country before I was able to get that job. But I learned as the job
Yeah,
progressed.
you learned on the job and your employers gave you that opportunity.
Exactly. And it was the best decision I made was to move to Singapore. I think it definitely opened a lot of doors for me after
Yeah,
that.
I kind of want to drill down on that because you were very specific. You said you felt an urge to move, you felt an urge to do more. How did you know that that meant looking for jobs outside of Malaysia?
Very good question. So I didn't really nitpick Singapore, but that was predominantly the closest international, very much international country, besides Malaysia. I was not far from home, and I wanted to see. As much as I went to the UK to study, that was for studying. Studying and working and living is totally different. Your life is totally different. So I want to test the waters to see how I would manage alone, a little bit further from home, not too far, how I liked it, how I manage as an individual. And that's why I picked Singapore. And the reason I had that urge was I was young, and I was very active on LinkedIn. I saw so many people, whether it was my friends or friends of friends, from Malaysia, they're all expanding their horizons, they're expanding their careers, some in Malaysia and within Malaysia. But I thought, you know what? If you don't try, Trisha, you're never going to know. The most someone can tell you is, sorry, Trisha, not this time, or sorry, you didn't get the job. So for me, applying for that one step to that job, I had it in my mind. If nobody contacted me, or if I went through that interview and I didn't get it, I'm not going to be demotivated, but I wanted to take that step. And I had that notion in my head that you can't be afraid, you need to take risks. And I'll be honest with you, I was at the time not a risk taker, which is why I really wanted to start that journey of like my career, my next steps. Let's start, let's do something. But now, trust me, I take a fair bit of risks. um,
Because to get better at anything, you need to practice. And so, similarly, to get better at taking risks, you have to start taking risks, right? And I think Singapore was a safe bet for all the reasons that you just said. Now, let's pivot a little bit to how was your life there? So, you talked about wanting to discover how you would manage being a little far from home. How was it like when you were there? Did you find community, friends? How did you like the lifestyle?
I embraced every moment I could. And I know that there is this blase thing that, between Singaporeans and Malaysians, right? But I had really good Singaporean friends. Lifestyle was great. It was definitely a lot more expensive, but I embraced it. It made me see Singapore as such an international hub. It was the international hub of
Yeah,
Asia.
that's it.
I believe the statistics at the time was almost half the community of Singapore being Singaporeans living there. The other half were expatriates. I think I had a very good time at the beginning. It was probably the first year, new, you're enjoying yourself and then everything. But it did hit me after maybe 2 years or so that I did feel a little bit alone. When I mean by alone, I don't mean, how can I put this? I feel like I could go out with my friends. We will go have the best brunches, the best this and everything. But then there's just this quietness afterwards, if you don't have anything planned, what am I to do? If I don't go out and do something, whether it's a brunch or drinks, and that is the community, and that was the community in Singapore. Weekend, it's all about the brunch or boozy brunches. And during after work, it's all about the drinks and not even dinner. Do you know what I mean? And it did consume me. I got very much pulled into that community. But I tried to let it go. I tried to see what else interested me. I started with the gym. I went for F45 training. I did a lot of like those activities, got to know people in that respect. But I think I was a bit young, and I was at that age. It was a precarious age where a lot of my friends were in relationships, and I was not. I would have never said it maybe 10 years ago, but it did hit a nerve. I have been very independent throughout my life. But sometimes when you see it, you'd always think, oh, it'd be nice, if you shared some time with somebody that genuinely was there for you. I think my personal life in the relationship side of things really didn't take off in Singapore very much because of the community. I think I did feel a sense of loneliness at times, which is why that drove me even further into my career. And I don't think that was a bad thing. But I did spend a lot of time working. My career kicked off quite well. My boss sent me to Japan for a business trip, which kind of broadened a little bit, my horizon. And I kind of was like, right, I love what I do. I love immigration. I'm good at it. I came back from my trip. I went into my boss's office and I said, look, I very much enjoy what I do, but I really want an opportunity to explore other countries. I want to move to either the UK or Europe and to see what's out there. And she said, right, okay, do not resign. Let me get back to you. Within a week, discussions took place, and my boss said, look, UK is a bit saturated right now, but Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, that's Dublin, they have a small office that's growing rapidly and they need people to join. So, and would I be
Wow,
interested?
Trisha, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I just want to unpack so many things. First of all, that loneliness piece that you talked about, I really could relate to that with my life in New York because I was also single for almost all of it. I was also doing the same thing, always hanging out, hustling from one thing to the next. And when COVID hit in 2020, all of that had to stop abruptly. And I was like, wait, what is my life? I felt an immense sense of emptiness. Even with some friendships that I had, I felt like, wait, I'm just always hanging out with them at parties. They don't know anything about me. There is an emptiness that comes from interactions that I've had for so many years. So I can really relate to that. And I'm glad that in your case, it actually pushed you in a positive way towards your career, but also allowed you to be like, hey, I think there's more for me elsewhere. So kudos to you for that. Secondly, I don't know what to say, but your boss, that's like the boss of everyone's dreams to be so supportive. And I must say, it's because your boss knew your value, right? Like they knew you were great at your job. They were like, hey, this person is hungry for more. They're ambitious. They're going to do well. Let's see what I can do to help them. Everybody needs a boss or a mentor or some kind of guide like that in their life at least once to give them that push. And I'm so glad you had it. And like you said, you were bold to ask, but I think the fact that you were willing to ask is because you knew that this person is somebody that you could count on. If anything, they'll just say, "Hey, Trisha, sorry, there's nothing else." So when she came back to you with, "Okay, there's an opening in Dublin, it's growing," was your immediate response to be like, "Yes, get me on the next flight," or you had to think about it?
The moment my boss said, "Look, Dublin, what are your thoughts?" I was like, "Here's my updated resume. You can take it." And within 2 weeks, I was on a call with somebody, and they were like, "Right, okay, you got the job. We'll send you the contract." And honestly, Yoshnee, I think I was in a bit of a state of shock because I I went to Japan in April. I started the discussions probably in May. I was on a call and everything finished by June. Early June, got all the paperwork, signed whatever I had to. My obviously, as a Malaysian national and you're going abroad to work, you need your work permits. They applied and sponsored me, so they were doing all of that, and it came through end of July. If you asked me in January 2019, would I have expected, like even remotely expected anything as such, I'd be like, ah, this you're joking. But yeah, it was surreal. I must say, I don't know. Maybe it was luck. It was my perseverance, or whatever it is. I think I did really want it. I just had that feeling in me that I wanted to do it now. It's like now or never situation. I opted for a November start just because, I was not going to leave my boss and the team here in a lurch. And I was very respectful of that. And we came to the agreement that I start there in November. So I still had some time. And then I moved officially to Dublin in
So you
November.
moved in November of 2019. And then COVID
Yes.
hit March of 2020. So you had a very short amount of time to get situated before we were all locked in. Walk me through how that was for you.
When I arrived, nobody knew COVID was coming. No one knew the existence of it. Now, as much as it was only a few months, it was the best time I moved because now moving from an Asian environment, I was moving into quite a purely Western environment as a whole. And it was during the festivities, right? You had Christmas, New Year's, and big companies like mine, there's a lot of celebrations. I literally arrived in November, and I swear to God, I have no idea how many Christmas events and parties I went to from the time I started. So, because we had a lot of those activities, I was able to meet a lot of people within the company in different departments, not just mine. Colleagues became friends, which was really nice. But when we went into this pandemic in March, it didn't hit me at first. It probably hit me maybe after 5 6 months. I was quite okay as again because I'm quite independent. I didn't really see much of an issue. I did everything by myself anyway. It was lonely, but I had my partner. So I met my partner early on in during my trip, like to Dublin. And I'll if you want, I'll interject and tell you the
You
story
gotta.
now. So so in July 2019, when I kind of knew that I was coming, everything's approved. I was on the
Wow.
apps. I was on the dating apps. And I had put my location as Ireland, being like, you know what? I'm going to be moving. Let's see what's out there. Swiped, got to know some people, and then I swiped with my partner. So we've actually been speaking. Well, now he's my fiance. It's funny to even say it. We have been actually speaking since early August 2019. So we spoke every day.
Wow. So let me clarify here. You didn't meet in those early months and you just spoke every day. How do you think that worked out? Because these days, people are like, oh, nobody talks on the apps, like ghosting and all these things. What do you think kept you guys connected?
So when we start our conversation, with the hi hello situation, I was quite transparent with what my situation was because I was still moving. I didn't want to lie to anybody. I said, look, I am not in Ireland at the minute. I'm moving. He was actually from Northern Ireland, and he explained that he was in the Republic working at the time when we kind of swiped. So we started talking, and I think after the first few days of talking, he just said, would you like to just video call and have a chat? And I think because it was such an early stage that happened, I knew he wasn't a catfish. He was a real person and real
Yeah, and you
human
have
being.
nothing to lose by taking one video call, right?
Exactly. If I didn't enjoy it or if nothing clicked, I'd be like, okay, this is just not going to work. We did. And since then, we had an on and off video call throughout, even as friends, just, a chat and here and there. And then I arrived in November, and I'll be honest, and he can even tell you that I was afraid to meet him in person. Not afraid, more so like, oh my goodness. And now I have to actually meet him. I only met him, to be honest, about 2 weeks after I arrived, not immediately. I met him mid November, and he came down. And I'm somebody who's quite like, safety is important to me. Yes, we've spoken on the phone, but I don't really know you. So I said, let's have a brunch date. And funnily enough, we had a lovely brunch together. And we obviously probably after the date would have just gone separate ways and kept in touch after. But he was like, so what are you doing after that? I was like, to be honest, I had to get stuff for the house. I just arrived. I didn't have, and then he asked, so where were you thinking? I was like, I don't know. The closest mall is this mall. And he said, I'll take you. And guess what? He took me shopping on our first date to get stuff for my house. So that was a very different date for me. I think it's not your traditional dinner and then you finish, you go back home, and then you see whether things progress. It was very, very friendly, very normal. And then pandemic hit. He lived in Northern Ireland. I lived in Dublin. So we didn't see each other for months because within the Republic of Northern Ireland even, and he only lived probably an hour and a half away from Dublin. But because of the rules, the pandemic rules in Europe, and he couldn't come, like he shouldn't be able to drive as well. So it was a very difficult time, but we spoke every single
Yeah,
day.
and you kind of already established that basis because you had the November to March. But honestly, Trisha, this guy sounds like a gem because I know like it's like sometimes as women you want to be like wined and dined, and he was like, "Let me just take you to the
Yeah.
mall to buy a pot and a plate," and you were like, "Is that going to come across as unattractive from my side?" Like,
I know.
but honestly, that's what you want in a partner because he was showing you that he cared and wanted to just do like everyday stuff with you. And
I'm a firm believer. I know some people have their differences and their own opinions. I do believe that things do happen for a reason. And so I do leave it to fate as well. Sometimes things happen the way it's meant to
yeah,
happen. Um, so yeah, so that's a good thing. I
Yeah.
met him,
And now you're
and
engaged and you've established a life here in Ireland. You're thriving in your career. What do you do for fun? Or I know you said you like to travel. What else is going on in your life now?
so I live in Northern Ireland now. I was living in Dublin for about 3 years, and I was working out of our Dublin office. And again, I had this sense of boldness. And I reached out to my boss and I said, look, I need to move to Northern Ireland because my partner is there. We're doing long distance. And this is a personal matter, I told her. I completely understand. But, is there a role that I can do there? And to be fair, I was doing a role. I had a few roles in my one position. One of them, essentially, or quite a huge part of that role, was based in Belfast. We had a Belfast team, so there was a business case there. And then in September 2022, I moved up to Northern Ireland. And what I do here for fun, I don't know as many people as I do probably back down in the Republic, but I do have a lot of friends abroad that keep me entertained. I do keep in touch with them. Um, but we do go for like weekend walks and hikes. And the thing with Northern Ireland and the whole of the island of Ireland is that it's beautiful
Yeah.
landscapes, beautiful mountains, and we do and a lot of wood walks, and it's a really lovely place to actually go on weekends. So that's how we spent some of our weekends. Apart from that, his family is here, so I do spend a fair bit of time with his family, which is really good. But yes, you are right again. Like, I am here with no actual friends that I have in Northern Ireland. I had to find and build that up
It's
again.
very difficult, especially the older you get, and everybody's in different life phases. And I don't think you know how hard it is until you are actually in it and you're like, wait, this is harder than I thought.
It is so hard because it's a very small country. When you look in the map and you read about it, Northern Ireland and Ireland, it's a very small place. So obviously locals have their cliques, and everybody's already with their friendship circles, as I would call it. I don't know if I'm going to meet anybody that I'm able to, go out for a movie with or go for some gym
Yeah.
classes with. And again, I don't know what came into me, but there is actually an app. There's an app for everything these days, and it actually baffles me, but an app where you find friends. I first thought it was a bit suspect. I wasn't too convinced, but I joined to try. And I said, look, if it isn't what it is, that's at the end of the app, funnily enough, I've met people through the app and I've made friends. We go out for dinners, we go out for meals. And I'm not talking about crazy drinking and actually having a
Yeah.
conversation, saying, let's go for a walk next weekend. And then I met another girl who lives not too far from where I do. And she and I have gone for like Pilates classes together. But I'll be honest, the first year and a half or so, I didn't really have many friends physically. And I did feel that sense of like, it's like I have my partner, very happy, but you need your own circle.
100% well said. But the good thing about that is that you don't need to rush. You can build it up one at a time, but you need to be patient, I guess. And in the
Yeah,
meantime, you can lean on friends that are not in your physical surroundings. It's just going to
exactly.
continue to grow where you build your community. I think one way that
Yep.
would help is for you to do activities with people that share the same interests as you. So, like Pilates is a good one.
Yeah,
Now
exactly.
we got to pivot to the golden question, but I'm going to flavor it a little differently. I'm going to say,
Okay.
Trisha, you're the only child. Your parents still live in Malaysia. Do you ever think that you'll move back to be closer to them?
100%. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know my answer and what it would be 20, 30 years down the line. Home is home. And I know home is where the heart is. My home is here, but my home is also
Right.
Malaysia. that my parents are my hearts, and at the end of the day, you could live in another country, but nothing does compare, and especially from a country that we come from and where we grew up in. It's a beautiful country. We have beautiful people. We have amazing food. We have amazing culture. And I'll be honest with you, after living in cities, in big cities like KL, Singapore, London, Dublin, and now, Yoshni, I'm not in a city. I'm in a very quiet place, very quiet. I appreciate a lot of the things that we actually have at
Yeah.
home. But from my heart perspective, I would move home if I think lifestyle wise is going to be better for, myself and my partner when we are older. I think Malaysia and Asia as a whole, I think Malaysia sits very nicely in between an international and Asian
Well said.
environment.
That's so great to hear. I also think that a lot of very talented Malaysians are moving abroad. And I think if the country goes in a positive direction, we would be very happy to come back to contribute.
You hit the nail right there. Really, you hit the nail there. We have a lot of capabilities, and it's just, it needs to be put to good
Yeah. Well,
use.
Trisha, before I let you go, because you've had a very inspiring story and, just how you've taken so many risks that have paid off, I was wondering if you want to leave our listeners with advice or, to inspire people to go after what they want.
I think for someone like myself, I was in a very close environment, in a sense that, I grew up as an only child. I always looked at my parents for answers and everything. When I grew up and got much older, I really needed my place, essentially. My advice to anyone and everyone out there: do never let someone tell you that you can't do something. You may not be good at something. That's okay. But try it. If you want to say something, if you want to go after something, go after it. Don't sit and regret later on. I always say never have what ifs. The most someone can tell you is no. That's it. But at least I asked, I tried my best, let me look for something else. I've had my fair share of people tell me, why are you going to Ireland? Always go after what you want. Never be disappointed that you never
That's
did.
it, Trisha. That was so good. Thank you so much for coming on to share your story. It's been really awesome. Even I learned so much from you. Next time I'm hesitant about taking a risk, I'm going to think of you.
Thanks,
Thanks
Yoshnee.
for listening, everyone.